What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Heat Report. And breaking news, the coronavirus has struck again, this time on the Miami Heat. Now, we all know that the pandemic has been affecting the NBA world a lot. Um, a lot of teams, players have been tested positive for the virus, and as a result, a lot of games have been postponed. A lot of teams have been depleted, and it just hasn't been a good few weeks for the NBA. And this has hit the Heat. Unfortunately, the coronavirus pandemic has hit the Heat. This whole situation, as we all know, the Miami Heat's game against the Boston Celtics was postponed last night due to an unidentified player on the Miami Heat um, that had traced the virus or something. It was something about contact tracing, and the only player that was named as being out for that game that was in the rotation was Avery Bradley. So I don't know if he was the player or if there was a player other than Avery Bradley that could have caught the virus on the Heat. Um, and we have seen this a lot. Michael Porter Jr. And Seth Curry were the first two players that I notably remember to have caught the virus or had contact tracing measures where they had to have sit out for a week or two. Michael Porter Jr. had to he missed a lot of time. Then Seth Curry actually got the virus, which ripped through the whole Sixers team, and as a result, they were forced to play reserves and bench players, as well as rookies and G League players in their game against the Nuggets. And they were very upset when the Heat Celtics game was postponed. And this has been hurting the league a lot recently because a lot of these games have been postponed, not just the Heat games. And for the Heat, this is very bad timing because we are actually scheduled to play the 76ers tomorrow. Um, so it's going to be interesting because both teams are depleted. Um, and I don't know if Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid will be back or not, because Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid did not sit out because they got the virus or they had contact tracing. It was because they had um, injuries. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work out, but this is a big blow for the Miami Heat. These are the players that are going to be sitting out against the Philadelphia 76ers and possibly even more time. Jimmy Butler, Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, Bam Adebayo, Mo Harkless, Udonis Haslem, KZ Okpala, and Avery Bradley. Now, a lot of these guys are rotation pieces. Actually, most of them are rotation pieces. The players that are not on the protocol or on the injury report are Precious Achua, Tyler Hero, Andre Iguodala, Duncan Robinson, Chris Silva, and Max Struss. Myers Leonard, whose shoulder is, as we saw in the Wizards game, he had a shoulder injury. He's questionable. Kelly Olynyk's groin injury makes him questionable, and Gabe Vincent's knee makes him probable for the game. So out of those three players at the end, two of them would have to be able to play in order for this game to continue. Otherwise, this game would not continue, in my understanding. So, what are the possibilities that could go through with all this going on, not just with the Heat, but with the NBA in general? There are three possibilities that I see that the NBA could, use to move forward. The first thing being taking a two week hiatus where each player is required to quarantine, and the NBA season can resume in 2 weeks, where all the players are rested and recovered from whatever contact tracing or protocol injury, whatever they have. Um, and that would just bring everyone back to normal, and we could just start up the NBA as soon as possible, which is the pro for this idea, is that basketball is back as soon as possible with this 2 week hiatus. And also it's in the regular conditions. We're not it's in everyone's arenas. So this is the quickest way to get everything back to normal. Taking a 2 week hiatus, in my opinion, is what I think what one of the options for the NBA are. And there are three options that I'm seeing right now. The con to this option is that this is a very temporary fix because if if someone tests positive again when we come back, or if this ripple of COVID cases happen again when we come back, we're going to have to do the same thing over and over again, which is why it's not a permanent fix, which is why I don't think the NBA is going to go through with this idea. Because what if everyone comes back out of that 2 week hiatus, and then in 1 week, someone tests positive and the whole team is depleted? So I don't know if the NBA is going to go with that idea. It's just one idea that I proposed. The second idea is to move the NBA into another bubble, like how we did last year. Now, obviously, um, the bubble was probably the safest environment for COVID cases, which is why it's the which is why this is a positive, and which is why I proposed this idea, because when we were in the bubble for the playoffs and for the seeding games, I don't even remember one player who tested positive for the virus inside the bubble. Um, Maybe there was one that I'm forgetting, but it was clearly the safest option out of everything that we have named so far. And out of every sport, I think the NBA had had the highest success rate in keeping players away from this virus, um, because the NFL had caught a lot of cases, same with the MLB. So moving to a bubble is a second option, but the con to this is that the NBA would lose a lot of money. The ratings would go down much more significantly than it has been right now. Players might have to take pay cuts. A lot of players would have to be away from their families. Um, and yeah, it's just, their lives would be on hold. Their families' lives would be on hold because they're missing their family members for quite a bit. Because if you're completing the whole season in the bubble, like last time it was just the playoffs. Think about this. You're completing 60 games right now, because I'm assuming like 10 games have already been played for each team. 62 games are going to be played in the bubble, plus the playoffs, and plus the playing games. So that's a lot of time that the players are away from their families. Um so yeah, man, I mean, that's the second option. The third option is to completely stop the NBA season and wait until further notice. And I don't want it to come to that, but I think that might be what it's going to be coming to, because the GMs had a meeting with Adam Silver this afternoon, and I don't know what was revealed in that meeting, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. I really don't want to stop watching basketball, but if it means the players are going to be safe, then I guess we have to accept that. Um, Now coming back to the Miami Heat's players, if we do play against the Sixers tomorrow, um, Precious Achua, Tyler Hero, Andre Iguodala, Duncan Robinson, I think are all capable of being starters. I'm assuming it would probably be Tyler, Duncan, Iguodala, Achua, and either Chris Silva, Kelly Olynyk if he plays, or Myers Leonard. And I think that's a good enough starting lineup to beat the Sixers, who are depleted. Because I think the Sixers last their starting lineup was, what is it, Tyrese Maxey and Isaiah Joe, Dwight Howard. They didn't have Ben Simmons or Embiid. So if the Simmons and Embiid don't play, I'm still confident we can beat the Sixers. But would you want the NBA to postpone this game as well? Because if the Miami Heat don't have two, you know how I said there was an injury report where Myers Leonard, Kelly Olynyk, and Gabe Vincent were all on the injury report. If two of the three don't play, then this game can't continue, because that'll only be seven players. But if that's going to be the case, the Heat have to inform the NBA as soon as possible that two of these three players are injured, so that the game can be postponed. And if it's postponed, I guess it's a loss because we don't get to see basketball, but it's a win because we can get to see our players rest up and play them at full strength when Embiid and Simmons come back, and there are other players as well. So let me know what your thoughts are on this, guys. I really just wanted to update you quickly because this is a big development, not only for the Heat but for the NBA as well. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes, fine. But this is scary for the NBA right now. I'll see you guys later.